obviously knowing her from Black Widow days, people are looking at the red hair and saying things like, oh, Poison Ivy, how you go out there, Dr. Quinzel, Harley Quinn. Hear me out. It's the Matt Reeves universe. I think Harley Quinn could be a possibility, but if she is used, she would mainly be as the doctor form, probably for most of the movie. And that's why I can see Scarlett Johansson shining in that role. But if it was full on Margot Robbie, Harley Quinn style, yeah, maybe I would get that over. But I'm thinking of Matt Reeves role. Well, then people like Jeff Snyder, who just got right that they changed this in the cover versus controversy that some sources correct on the set of the Batman. He added on that not only was this role first offered to Emma Stone, who decided to pass on it, make Scarlett Johansson the first team aggressively pursue this role. The fans sucked. I would have liked to have seen Emma Stone in this movie. He then added on she's looking to play a love interest that later turns out to be a villain in the movie. And that right there was enough for people to go wild. If you just left in their love interest, oh, put in a Vicky Vale or something of that sort. Now people are pretty sure they're taking inspiration from Batman Master of Phantasm and introducing us to Andrea Beaumont. This would fit into that category of a love interest that ends up becoming a villain. When also looking at interviews with people involved with the project, they've also said that this villain has never been done in live action before. That was certainly good with Phantasm, and if you even look at that animated movie, it's awesome. It feels a lot more with the psychology and the man behind the mask with Batman is kind of what they're going for. I'm thinking they're going to explore a lot of the Bruce Wayne persona of Batman Part 2. People have even gone through the history of the co-writer in this movie, Matt Thompson, who has also shown that he's praised. So this could very well be the case. Like I said, Matt Reeves has been doing a little gift to confirm casting. So any day now, he could probably welcome Scarlett Johansson into casting. I don't know if he'll make it what they want or if he'll do Master of Phantasm. That would be kind of crazy and cool. But it also would make you wonder how do you go about saying that it's a movie. Because a lot of those would already know that person reveal. So would you even work it as a person reveal or if it's a person Jeff Snyder also did add on that a male villain in the movie is Dr. Arkham. Again, I don't think it takes that to mean that he is the main villain. Same even with his character Scarlett Johansson to play. Matt Reeves has already shown, especially with that first movie, he will have multiple villains to kind of flesh out the world. Dr. Arkham being part of the movie as an antagonist role, I think that makes sense. Especially with the mystery we've learned that Batman's mom spent some time in Arkham, and there could be some shady history with the Waynes and Arkham. I think we might be getting a history of it, and Dr. Arkham would be a huge part of it. I'm just fascinated to see where all this goes to. It's just a team that's doing that. It's like I really do want to see that, but man, knowing Emma Stone was the first choice, she probably would have lost that role, and not to say Scarlett Johansson couldn't. It would be interesting to see them adapt. I throw it off to you guys. What do you make of these reports and details from Batman? Anyways, guys, that is all for right now. I think it's just time to get a walk through talking to me. Go to hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm going to make this again on TikTok at 50%. As always, that's it. Last week, I did myself to come up with this name for WCW Nitro as an author. It's the least I could have done, considering this month is the 30th anniversary of its debut, and the show is so important to modern wrestling mythology today. However, this week, I'm going to go in the other direction. It's going to be a whole lot easier. This week, I know my pick the top page worthless is WCW Nitro history. What are some of your picks? Let me know in the comment section and see how they measure up to this list. Let's begin. Number 8, NWO Nitro. When NWO first blew up, it was as if WCW could do no wrong. If it was in black and white, then it was gold, baby. Unless they didn't cover it on backstage. Then it was just first there was a show segment on WCW Saturday night. Then came Sold Out 97, the first ever NWO friendly pay-per-view that saw the brand enter the building on garbage truck. A fine visual representation of what was presented that night. Then that December, the true goal was realized. A block of Monday Night Television just for the NWO Nitro. Fill the order, buy it. This is a pretty good thing because it wasn't for many others. It was the go-home episode of Nitro before Starrcade 97, the most highly
highly anticipated event in company history. The blow-off to their biggest storyline of all time. Yes, that means it's time to give Hollywood Hogan his victory lap. As the first hour of Nitro came to a close, the NWO staged a hostile takeover of the broadcast. Leading the announce team, harassing the camera crew, tearing down the WCW logos to replace them with NWO. All like somebody in the back occasionally fell asleep on the NWO soundboard. Think of an hour when they weren't all dropping all their WCW opponents, they left this episode goofing off and showering over his praise. They gave him a motorcycle and hung banners. They sang him songs.
I'm dreaming of a life. Christmas.
Maybe that's why he was rich thinking he wasn't traveling. The show ended with a singer singing a not so subtle message to Hogan, but by that point the baddies had had their vitamins and taken them too. A lot of fans had tuned out over all the self-indulgence. Getting Raw particularly in viewership for the hour. NWO Nitro kept up that bell on the back and never came back. All that set we designed for that. To this days before Christmas, you think Bischoff would have seen this as a come-to-Jesus moment. But even after Starcade, the group remained dominant to the point of overexposure. And if you can believe it, this is far from the worst thing on this list having to do with the NWO. Stay tuned. Number 7. In 2025, there are 3 long-term success stories in wrestling, quite like Dustin Rhodes, who only now, at the age of 56, managed to finally call it quits after double knee replacement. Truly an inspiration that 25 years ago, he were as positive and rosy for the match. Dustin's slippery slope into WrestleCraft territory really began in 1998 during his artist phase, then his tournament phase. Back to WCW. Obviously, he couldn't be sold up there, but there wasn't anything saying he couldn't be taken up. Actually, you know what? What's your take on that? Before anyone goes throwing stones at this resource over there, Dustin himself has taken all the credit for this one. The result of a creative brainstorm that also involved his father Jesse, and yet even young Tony Rhodes, he showed a proof of character, which was inspired by the recent sci-fi film Dark City. When he came WCW, they naturally went all out in the hype. And before anyone says something in the comments, no way that kid is 14-year-old Cody. Besides, you just know he would have thought this pretty good at evil anyway. After weeks of bizarre dress, it was finally time to face their music in the November 8th, 99 edition of Nitro. I'll give them this, the entrance was pretty cool, but then...
For everybody in here to take a good long look at this PAC-MAN. All of you don't know I was Goldust, and Goldust sucks. So I'm here now, I stand before you. Oh, my new name is Southern.
At the last minute, we took the best discussion to throw the whole thing out, explaining the story of the sacrifice to the cowboy. Everyone with a spot on it says it's like 7 days off pedophile vibes, but I don't know, let's let Sam's Uncle Fester or think I've given off too. Personally, I think that criticism is a bit overblown. Creepy demonic beings standing in the windows is just like a classic horror trope. Okay, look, if he said that while he was holding candy in his hand, I can see why S&P hated it. So instead, this pulled us into 2 on WCW creators to describe something as a battle-man such as Pepper's character. These get people talking and put a lot of heat on Vince Russo. At this point, the face was still not being television, and he was never getting into a program with Dustin anytime soon, so good job. Dustin took the face and kept the jacket, spending the rest of his time in WCW as the first American Nightmare. As ambitious as the 7th character was, he was just too outlandish for WCW, even without his stick involved. Thinking again, it might be one of the few Russo ideas I believe, but by bailing immediately for a temporary spot, all it did was waste everyone's time, and it made Dustin, and of course WCW, put even more to it. Number 6, The great championship leaders. Comic books, TV shows, movies, all done the occasional record. Whether it was bodybuilding death being undone in Dallas by revealing his whole dream, superheroes dying only to be brought back to life, or a community that was blamed one season being fun and doing right audacity, sometimes this life says it seems accelerated. Yet wrestling has rarely, if ever, done the same thing because of that strange linkage between fantasy and reality. And some fans might think that would be a big flaw. But 25 years ago, Vince Russo said, "Hold my bro." By the spring of 2000, Russo had been hired as head writer, promoted to be part of the committee, walked out in protest, then came back to work alongside the formerly fired Eric Bischoff, who served the resurrected for 3 weeks during the spring. And they decided to step with a trade turnaround and was completely stop at the track. On the initial 10th episode of Nitro, 1 week after airing the best episode, WCW went live once again to kick off the Bischoff and Russo era, so on camera and off. They stood in the ring surrounded by all the young up-and-comers who've been held down by established fans. Let's try it not, for instance. After drawing a line in the sand between the New Blood and the Millionaires Club, the Giants then stripped all the championships from the existing title holders, completely halted any ongoing storylines and announcing that it started from scratch. And that idea goes really hard if you're not going to think of no working. But just like with settings, if it's starting that ends up in starting over, then might as well be telling the fans, you shouldn't care about this item. By the way, after the reset, the WCW title was changed hands 18 times throughout the rest of the company's existence, including David Arquette, Vince Russo himself, and 2 vacancies. Great job. Number 5, Hulk Hogan to Randy Savage for the world title. Well, the feelings are bad because you're not supposed to Hulk Hogan's strength seem to be intertwined with, so in and out of the sport triple across multiple companies, it was Macho Man Randy Savage. And even when Savage had his moment in the sun, more often than not, it was Hogan who would rain on his parade. Savage was heard this from before. Hogan got the championship, but not in the way that most in Europe do. Later on, Savage wins the championship. And yet, not by this, but Hogan. And then Hogan comes in and beats Savage for that. If that sounds familiar to you, WCW fans felt major deja vu in the span of 1 year. The first time came up April 20th, 1998. Savage was in the midst of a split from the NWO Black and White and managed to beat Sting to a big gold belt Spring Stampede 1 night early. That's the same Sting, by the way, who triumphantly beat Paul with Hogan Star Trade a month earlier, and then would go on to join the NWO Wolfpack 6 months after this. You know, it's not important to this story, but I just want to point out the 2 things. Hogan challenged Savage to a title match on Nitro, and with the help of unofficial NWO satellite member Bret Hart, won the belt as Savage left the field with torn ACL. Fast forward back to Beach 99. Savage wins the belt yet again. And again, 1 night later, he dropped the belt to his returning Hulk Hogan. And he wasn't even injured to justify at the time. It's not really today. At least this time he got some solid shots in with that weight cut. Randy probably knew there might not be any big matches to see him again, so he had to make them happen. Number 4, the NWO impersonates the Horseman. I'm not starting out movies, but I believe that there are many sacred things left in programs. Sometimes you want to get things you gotta dig deep and get really personal. But this next entry is an example of when keeping it real went right. On August 27, 1997 episode of Nitro, Arn Anderson decided to call it a career. After his retirement, after literally breaking his body on behalf of WCW. It was an emotional moment in the ring. The long fall made it back on his career, and granted, Kurt Hennigan's spot as the living closer of the group, while best friends with Flair with all secrets pulled back too. It was kind of rare and surprising to see such a pressing most of its professional wrestling, a business that's so desperate to hurry and get to the next spot, so to speak. So, what's next? Laugh? Then you wanna laugh? In the face of what will become many costume, imitative skits like this members across the land for the next few years, members of the New World Order came out in sports drag the following week on Nitro. Dressed as on with a bald cap, an overstretched strap, a neck brace, and a beer cooler. Not specific to roasting as he was tired to a legitimate injury the previous week. Now, he was getting feet off another person's injury, had been done before, often to break the set. Not gonna lie, for the past doesn't have good comic shots, so why was this considered so tasteless? Well, in cases like this, typically both parties are in it. And in this case, the whole thing was definitely not. To them, it felt like a betrayal, something they weren't allowed to fire back on. Not to mention all the additional pressure that Anderson's family was having to be watching the show back. Oh yeah, the husband couldn't even get revenge in the ensuing war when Chris had turned off Flair the match. And speaking of things, number 3, the main guest was Ric Flair. Like I mentioned last year, WCW tried their best to get rid of Ric Flair over the years. It's kind of nuts how badly they wanted to slough him off, despite him being such a vital part of the company. Their get-out-of-jail-free card for the last decade. And you would think after seeing all the footage he was subjected to, particularly in the last few years of the company, how could he have withstood all that? Years before his date with Eric Bischoff at Starrcade '98, only 3 months after his dramatic return to Greenville, Flair delivered one of his trademark and passionate promos, full of bravado and passionate animal only to be done in by terrible timing. It's so long, still have.
Ric Flair, totally exhausted, and perhaps for good reason.
God, imagine if he said something else like, "You have no penis." Oh, he would have traumatized. Other things got very serious. Friends and officials gathered around and as the boy commentary dropped out. They really did their best to convince viewers that this was a real deal, all while keeping the camera squarely focused on the poor bastard. Of course, it was all done to build extra sympathy for Flair and make him seem vulnerable in his first life. Then again, the fact that Flair was still advertised to wrestle 2 weeks after a supposed heart attack sort of killed the angle's credibility altogether. And you know what's really sad about this? They weren't even in as bad a place as world-class championship wrestling was when Chris Von Erich pulled the same stunt a decade earlier. And look how well that worked out for them. Then finally, when they took out of a twist that made it even worse, they tried to back away from the controversy by suggesting that Flair had really been poisoned by Bischoff. You guys, it wasn't nature, it's murder. Totally different. But that's just one of the many times Flair would be humiliated throughout Nitro's rich history. Who can forget when he got thrown in the nut house and tried dancing with the orderlies? Or when he got a bloodbath courtesy of Vince Russo? Or when Russo shaved his head? Or when the filthy animals left him in a shallow grave in the desert, which was never brought up again upon his return? Then there's this all-timer, a lowlight from the February 15th, 1999 edition of Nitro, an episode so bad it almost deserves its own entry. On a show that featured an angle with suspended referee Scott Dickinson, a random trios match that went for 24 minutes, and Bret Hart beating Mad TV's Will Sasso only after the assist from Sasso's co-star Deborah Wilson, yes, that happened. The viewers were also treated to multiple vignettes showing President Ric Flair being taken to the show with other executives, driven by his temporary lackey in Eric Bischoff. But it was a setup, as the Bish brought Flair to a remote location to get beat down by Hollywood Hogan and the New World Order. And man, this was all-time ass-kicking, like 10 uninterrupted minutes of this brutal, savage beatdown, the kind that would leave a man deader than dead in real life, all caught on camera. Then we would see him getting picked up by some random stranger on the side of the road. Then we'd see the truck driving to the arena instead of someplace like a hospital. Then we'd see Flair somehow make his way back to the building to try and take the fight to Hogan again, only for him to take another massive beating to end the show. And here's the thing, all those bits they kept cutting to, like the airplane hangar, the limo ride, the beatdown, the stranger picking up Flair, all that, none of it was acknowledged or even referenced by the commentary on that show. Apparently, they, in kayfabe or whatever, just didn't see that footage, and it was just for the audience. But how is that possible? If we can see it, why couldn't they see it? They didn't know why the NWO came to the building wearing ski masks, or why Flair was missing, or why he showed up in a stranger's truck covered in dirt and bruises and wielding an axe handle. Was this all meant to be taking place outside the realm of the show? How could there be that kind of disconnect between the action and the voice of the product? Don't you think that on the go-home episode before the big world title match at Super Brawl that we should get a little clarity in our storytelling? You know what? Okay, I think I get it now. After recapping all this, I think I understand why Ric Flair stayed in the company to the bitter end. I mean, if Space Mountain can survive a plane crash, a lightning strike, kidney failure, and a mid-match heart attack, what's a little shitty booking gonna do? Number 2, Vince Russo wins the WCW Championship. If this video were a countdown of the worst Thunder moments, then David Arquette winning the championship would easily top that list. But here, you're somehow getting a derivative of that. Few people copied his own homework more than Vince Russo after becoming the head writer of WCW, and there was no recycled storyline more lucrative than that of the evil boss. It began innocently enough when he debuted as the faceless powers that be. Then things got out of hand when he became an on-screen character on Reset Day. But Vinny Rosebud as a Mary Sue reached an all-time level of suck when he booked himself to challenge Booker T for the WCW title in a steel cage on September 20th, 2000. Why? Well, hell, he's already gone over every other big name so far. Why not? 7 minutes of some of the most unbelievable Crash TV bullshit ensued in the main event. 36 people got involved. Booker had time to say his catchphrase on the live mic. He could have easily won by walking out the door, but just stood still like an idiot when Goldberg's music played. Then Goldberg entered the cage and speared Russo through the wall, granting Vince a massive concussion and the World Championship, which Booker celebrated by high-fiving Goldberg. Holy shit, I hate this. The whole match was a frustrating train wreck, an exercise in slow torture with the worst possible outcome, rendered pointless the very next week when Russo vacated the belt and Booker won it back. It's like nothing had happened, but it did. We all saw it. Nobody's going to say that Vince Russo alone killed WCW, but making himself the champion certainly added about a dozen nails to that coffin. But don't worry, Russo fans, because he is nowhere to be seen in the top entry of this countdown. But before we get there, here's where the big honorable mentions play. Roddy Piper's uncensored open tryout. It's always fascinating to go back and see the precise moment when a great artist officially falls off and loses the plot. And for Roddy Piper, that moment came weeks before Uncensored 97, leading partners for a triangle elimination match, but refusing to work with WCW talent. The Hot Rod staged an open tryout featuring lesser-known individuals. It was a who's who of who's that. Some random power plant guys and other good friends of Piper, all taking turns sparring with the icon, who was more blown up with each passing round. Finally, a face that fans recognized, John Tenta, the man formerly known as Earthquake, Avalanche, and The Shark, and the former sumo wrestler to boot. But by that point, his stock had plummeted 20,000 leagues under the sea, so what was the point? After the longest 20 minutes in recorded history, the fans had had enough of this nonsense, and Piper went from looking like John Wayne to a rodeo clown in one segment. It was so bad, the following week, WCW said F it with the auditions and just put Piper with the Horsemen. Bad magic. Now, the WWF did not own the market on silly special effects in wrestling. But whenever WCW tried doing it, it just never sat quite right. Whether it was the Dungeon of Doom and the Yeti bursting out of a block of ice, or the Ultimate Warrior showing up in Hulk Hogan's mirror, or using the power of teleportation to turn Ed Leslie into his bondage slave, or Charles Lee Ray himself, a.k.a. Chucky, needlessly interjecting himself into Rick and Scott Steiner's business, these are the moments that made a lot of fans wish that they could disappear with the wave of a wand. The San Francisco 49ers match. Longtime viewers will know this match also ranked high on the worst gimmick matches countdown I did about 100 years ago, and it still holds up as a god-awful piece of TV business. A direct result of entry number 2, the vacated belt was decided in Vince Russo's Wet Dream, a match with 4 poles. Atop the poles were some boxes, and inside one of those boxes was the world title. Jeff Jarrett and Booker T embarrassed themselves in front of the Daly City crowd as they plowed their way through these flimsy crates, a couple of which could barely stay hooked onto their chains. Finally, by process of elimination, ring announcer David Penzer became the new WCW champion, by technically being the first person to touch the belt after it fell out of its box and crashed to the floor below. But then he gave it to Booker T. Yay! War Games 2000, Russo's Revenge. Hey everyone, slightly more recent Brian Zane here. I was just reminded of this atrocity weeks after I recorded the rest of this, so now I have to talk about it. And son of a bitch, do I have a headache. Before Shane Strickland took it for himself and made it his own, for years the word swerve was best associated with Vince Russo. If there's one thing that guy loved, it was swerves. Couldn't get enough of them. There were swerves and there were swerves, but the September 4th, 2000 Nitro had the swerviest swerve of them all. For the first and only time in Nitro history, we would see a War Games match on television. Only it was a triple-decker cage instead of a single closed cage, and it was over 1 ring instead of 2. And also, Kevin Nash's WCW title was on the line, and you had to climb up the cage, pull down the hanging belt, then go back down and leave the cage to win. And technically, any man could win it, making teamwork meaningless. But besides that, it was totally war game. The team of Sting, Booker T, Goldberg, and the Cat went against the stable of Nash, Scott Steiner, Jeff Jarrett, and the man himself, Vince Russo. All night, Nash has been at odds with Russo over the match, to the point where fans, at least those who had never watched wrestling before, thought the team might fall apart for good. After each babyface had to win a final qualifying match earlier in the night to keep their spots in the first place, it finally came time for the match itself, which was a giant confusing mess from the start. Run-ins on run-ins, swerves atop swerves, all the babyfaces handcuffed. Goldberg did have a badass moment when he broke free and he had the match won, which could have been cool, but instead he got screwed by Bret Hart, who at that point was no closer to having another match than he is today. Suddenly the fake tension between the heel contingent disappeared and Nash walked through the door, still the champion. All that build and tension, just one big swerve that nearly killed the War Games concept right then and there. It might have meant more if they didn't basically do the same, are they going to break up or not swerve, 1 week earlier and without a giant cage. I can't wait to see how they top this with a whole other week to go before Fall Brawl.
A wedding and brain surgery.
If I remember this match when originally putting the list together, I think I would still put Russo's championship victory as number 2. I mean, shit, at least a wrestler won the War Games match. Okay, let's get this over with. And my pick for the worst moment in WCW Nitro history is, well, everyone else's, the finger poke of doom. By the end of 1998, the balloon was officially off the road for WCW. There was that big glass ceiling, bloated nitros, division within the locker room. Things were looking pretty dire, but they still had one really big thing they could hang their hats on. They had Bill Goldberg, the WCW champion, and that hot, unbeaten streak.
173 1 and a new world champion.
Well, a rematch was made for the first Nitro of '99, January 4th in Atlanta. But as the show began, Goldberg would be confronted and arrested by local police for allegedly stalking Elizabeth. As Berg was taken away for questioning and the likelihood of him being in the main event was increasingly who should waltz back in from his post-Warrior break but Hollywood Hogan, who lately has been going around declaring his intention to run for president, which, honestly, now, I kind of welcome that timeline where that would have happened. Like, why not? But with the future in the Oval Office unlikely, Hogan answered the challenge of his former NWO buddy, and a new main event was on. Just as the match was about to happen, Liz's story fell apart, and Goldberg was released, and he rushed across the street to the Georgia building to hopefully meet his challenge. But Bill couldn't possibly have gotten there faster as soon as the plot at hand became known to everyone, compelling Nash to take the biggest, most exaggerated bump of his career and lay limp as Hogan made the cover and won the title again, and the two celebrated along with Scott Hall. Yes, apparently WCW's big idea was to just retcon all the strife and the feuding between the NWO members for the last year and get the band back together. Well, just the cool members of the band, that is, as the rest were shunted off to the B team. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the wrong B team. Oh, God, that is still the wrong B team. This one. Okay, here we go. Goldberg stormed the ring, only to be beaten down and spray-painted by the NWO Elite to close out the show. Everything old was new again. Deal with it, jabronis. Oh, okay, that was disappointing. But come on, it's not like Raw was doing anything better that night. I mean, it was taped in advance. It wasn't even live. Come on, we know what happened. Yeah, see? Not nearly as cool as the finger poke of doom. It was all the worst parts of WCW in one segment. A hot shot angle, a big heel beatdown to close out the show, and everything ultimately ending back up with Hulk Hogan, who would turn face like 2 months after this. Yes, even after leaving Ric Flair for dead. The company's increasing reliance on shock booking to try and change their fortunes, rather than doing what made them successful in the first place and going slow and steady, blew up in their faces. It was impossible to take the company seriously ever again. Considered to be the night WCW finally hit the iceberg, there's a reason just about everyone agrees the finger poke of doom is the worst Nitro moment of all time. But what other moments stand out to you as the best of the worst? I know there are a lot of other things that I missed out on in the rich history of Nitro, so please let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up if you like it, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell icon for all the notifications. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time. One thing that's completely unique to professional wrestling compared to other sports is the placement and assessment of talent. Usually, the best athletes rise to the top of their respective field as a natural consequence of their ability. But in the world of professional wrestling, finding out who the best of the best is gets a bit more murky. There are more examples than you can count of incredible wrestlers over the decades who never got close to the main event scene through no fault of their own. In professional wrestling, you have to not only work really hard, but also impress the fans. And even if you do both of those things, at the end of the day, it comes down to the whims of whoever's holding the pencil. And in WWE, few of their best wrestlers suffered from as many of those whims as Christian. Despite a career filled with objective success, partly responsible for the growth and proliferation of wrestling's current style, one of the most consistent things said about him has been they should have done more with him. But why do the powers that be miss what seems so obvious to many fans? This week, we're going to find out. So pull up those turtlenecks and go jump off a ladder, as this week we explore the WWE run of Christian! Hey guys, this one's for you! To the surprise of no one, Christian's story in wrestling began very similarly to that of his kayfabe brother and real-life best bud, Adam Copeland, as the two grew up and trained together in the Toronto area, tagging in the independents and around the world as the Suicide Blonde. By 1998, Copeland had already been signed to the World Wrestling Federation and began appearing on TV as the enigmatic Edge. Later on, Edge put in a good word for his pal Christian Cage to get an invite to Dory Funk Jr.'s training camp, which was, at the time, a pipeline to a developmental deal. Soon after the camp, Christian got signed and met right back up with his friend.
Who's this guy? We got a fan across the rail here.
September 1998, breakdown in your house. After a hot start as Sable's mystery tag partner at SummerSlam 1 month earlier, Edge made his singles pay-per-view debut against Owen Hart in the opening contest. At a crucial moment, that's when we first saw him. There with his flowing blonde locks, big sunglasses, and shiny shirt. At first I thought this was turning into a twin joints at WrestleMania 9 situation. But instead, this mysterious individual simply confounded the trench coat wearing loner, leaving Owen to capitalize and win the match. The next night on Raw, it was revealed that the young man was not only Edge's brother in storyline, but that he had also aligned himself with Gangrel, the vampire character with whom Edge had already started feuding with.
When our bloodlines first embraced, I knew you were so special. I come to bring you home.
At Judgment Day in October, Christian finally made his in-ring debut. Wearing his velour pants and a big frilly shirt, Christian beat Taka Michinoku for the light heavyweight championship. But honestly, at this point, the belt was kind of an afterthought. Taka had hardly defended it since WrestleMania. So it was kind of like a double-edged sword. Like, hey, wow, you win a belt in your very first match. Too bad it's the belt that took a backseat to the Val Venus castration angle. The acrimony between Gangrel, Christian, and Edge had seemingly come to a halt. 1 week after the pay-per-view, Edge joined forces with his former rivals, and the Brood was formed. And it was at this point that a young Brian Zane's love of wrestling went up to 11. By the fall of '98, I was fully obsessed with wrestling, hook, line, and sinker. But the whole presentation of the Brood was peak. Their similar looks, that awesome entrance theme, the lighting, the candles, the red viscous fluid, and the bloodbath. And who could forget that iconic rising through the ring of fire? Except that most pay-per-views, since they didn't build stages for them to come up from. Sad. Either way, the Brood was a kick-ass stable that really resonated with the moody teenager in me. It seemed as though nothing could stop them, until Christian lost the light heavyweight title to Dwayne Gill 1 month after winning it. Oh yeah, they'll start putting some spec on that belt any day now. The lads with the gothic lifestyle were still one of the cooler acts in an era full of cool acts. Yet ironically, this group of vampires spent a lot of their time looking up at the lights. In early '99, the trio briefly feuded with the Undertaker's Ministry of Darkness before later joining them in a fun-looking ritual. And while you think an alliance like this would help them, in reality they just got lost in the shuffle. Look at the size of this group, even before they merged with the corporation. You think these guys with their flowing locks and Michael Flatley shirts are going to get time to shine above the stalwarts like Midian, Viscera, and early-era acolytes? Apparently not. I will say this, the Brood did get a cool moment at WrestleMania 15. It was awesome to see those guys rappel down from the rafters, looking all evil and shit, helping the Undertaker. Oh, yeah, that. You know, there's a lot of that 99 that you probably just
You was trying to scare me.
The ministry angle really kicks in behind here. The Undertaker kidnapped a young Stephanie McMahon. In one of his most badass moments, the corporation's Ken Shamrock went nuts, scouring the arena in search of Vince's daughter. Completely no-selling a blue blood bath while capturing Christian in the ankle lock. Notable for being the first time we hear Christian speak.
This is a really marvelous human being. This is a handmade thing. Yeah, I like that. That's cute. And then I found this one too. It says, little reminders, you are enough. It's okay to have bad days. Don't believe everything you think. You are very lucky. Kinder to yourself.
I'm gonna keep it real. Chicks dig archery. I don't know what it is. Maybe it reminds me of Cupid or something, but something about a bow and arrow. It's not too much effort, you know what I mean? So when somebody says they're hosting an archery tournament, you bet your ass I'm gonna be there. It's like the NBA All-Star Weekend. You know what I'm talking about? So I'm like, great, what are the prizes? And they're like, the golden arrow, great, love it, stick it on my shelf.
Because he's playing the game.
And
They should be breaking my
a
ear.
kiss from Lady Mary. And I'm like, did you just say a kiss from Maid Marian?
I like the other one better.
Because I don't know if you know this, but
Are you
Maid
getting all
Marian is a total.
I just thought this one initially because, you know, we work with like. Oh, so the puzzle piece of it. So it kind of. Isn't it like awesome one? Yeah. Okay, what is it gay if the nigga wants like? No. It's not gay. So let me record this. So we can hear. No. Why are you recording? Is it gay if the nigga wants his butt? No. If your nigga actually eats his butt, is he gay? No. Okay. That makes sure. As long as you're not putting like anything in
No,
his butt.
like he was to eat, but
No, as long as you're not putting nothing
he
in his
thinks it's so gay. But his uncle is that.
Most men do.
You guys got
Yeah, you're fucking weird. Did you? Shut up. Did you? You did. I did not. You did. Why are you laughing? Yes, he did. Yes, he did. I'm gonna ask Dad. Dad. No, I need to ask you a question. Okay, go upstairs.
You need to be up around the same time, because we got to be there by 8:45. 7 is good.
I'm gonna keep it real. Chicks dig archery. I don't know what it is. Maybe it reminds me of Cupid or something, but something about a bow and arrow. It's a real tunic dropper, if you know what I mean. So when somebody says they're hosting an archery tournament, you bet your ass I'm gonna be there. It's the NBA All-Star Weekend. This guy knows what I'm talking about. So I'm like, great, what are the prizes? And they're like, the golden arrow, great, love it, stick it on my shelf. And a kiss from Maid Marian. And I'm like, did you just say a kiss from Maid Marian? Because I don't know if you know this, but Maid Marian is a total fox, and I mean that literally. I know. You're thinking, what's a strapping guy like you doing in a medieval fantasy land populated with anthropomorphic animals like this? Oldest story in the world. Me and a couple of my friends went on an enchanted carnival ride where we were sucked into another dimension by a guy called the Dungeon Master. Spoiler alert, not as kinky as the name would suggest. And he gave us all a magical weapon, and thank God I got the magical lightning gun, not that stupid shield like Eric. What did Hank say? No.
I just want to tell you this.
Don't listen to Eric. Anyway, I've been stuck here since I was 13, making a name for myself in the rangery archery circuit, yada. But come on now. The kids from Maid Marian? Hey, I mean, first of all, there's certain ways an interesting question to consent. Like, yes, she's agreeing to kiss the winner. That could literally be anyone. Probably going to be Robin Hood, but still. And let's be real. Maid Marian, she is a stone cold fox. This is not even up for debate. I mean, who wouldn't? This guy knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm just telling you to stop eating ass. That you're asking everybody else, you better stop eating ass.
If he didn't think it was gay,
you wrestling after being the RTC my face for so long. When Lena got tagged in, the crowd once again went crazy. She
I'll
performed
laugh
a
because you're asking your parents if
She
they
took
eat.
Ivory down
Well,
before
first of all, you're
knocking her out
asking
of the ring,
parents,
following a
your
clothesline.
parents,
And this is when
about
China showed
if
up there.
eating ass is gay, and then you're like, did you eat dad's ass? Like, who said that to their parents?
The final season.
Hold on. So you saying if Cam didn't think it was gay, you would eat his ass?
Watching that keep
I understand that.
No,
I'm
that is not what that says. That says so.
that shit like that. That's what it's about.
Like groceries?
Oh my god.
Emil, get the fuck off my phone. Get off my phone. Get out of here. No, I was calling you to joke around with you, and then you just was talking about you was gonna eat his ass like groceries. I don't want to know. I don't want to know this. You swear? Don't be swearing on my life that you be eating Cam's ass, bro. Which grandma? Oh, okay. Oh, that was funny as fuck. Why are you asking me and your dad about eating ass?
About eating ass.
Oh, he was having a conversation with his homeboy.
About ass eating.
About ass. When he told his homeboy he got his ass eaten. Yeah, you know what I meant. Gotcha. Gotcha. Now, I got it now. Now I'm on the same page now.
Only partially open.
No, I didn't say that you couldn't answer the question.
Only what you caught on what you asked eat open.
I didn't say you couldn't answer the question. You should not be recording your parents. Why you gotta say go eat butt? I'm not eating no butt. I'm gonna end the phone call quick. Bye. Get out of here. Hasta mañana. Arrivederci. Don't even know what that means, do you? It means goodbye in Italian. I don't snatch booties. Because that is gay. You're not supposed to put nothing in no man's ass. That is definitely gay. Oh my god, goodbye. Oh my god, goodbye.
Hello everybody, I'm Dan Merle here with my review of Kill Bill, The Whole Bloody Affair. Now, if you're not familiar with this movie, it combines Kill Bill Volume 1 and Kill Bill Volume 2 into one movie with a 15-minute intermission between the two parts. There have also been some alterations. The cliffhanger from Part 1 and the recap from Part 2 have been cut. The fight at the House of Blue Leaves is now in color instead of black and white. There's some new animation that was done to further flesh out Oren Ishii's backstory. And since this version is unrated, there's also a little bit of extra blood and gore, but not a whole lot. The Whole Bloody Affair also includes, after the credits, an animated short that debuted in Fortnite called The Lost Chapter, Yuki's Revenge, which I'll talk about at the end of the review. Kill Bill, The Whole Bloody Affair has been sort of a thing of legend for most moviegoers for a couple of decades now. Tarantino has not been shy about saying that he believes that Kill Bill 1 and Kill Bill 2 only count as one movie in his filmography because that's how he intended it. He screened this version of the film in some very isolated settings before he screened it at Cannes back in 2006. He occasionally has had showings at the theaters he owns in Los Angeles, the New Beverly, and the Vista. But most movie fans, myself included, probably resigned themselves to the fact that unless they lived in LA, they would never be able to see this wide release, including select screenings in 35mm and 70mm. Unfortunately, the screening I went to was not on film, but I will say that even with digital projection, it still looks great. If you want to see this version of Kill Bill, Tarantino has been very non-committal when it comes to any sort of streaming release or physical media release. So the safe thing to do is to buy a ticket and see it in theaters now while you can. I saw both Kill Bill movies in theaters when they came out, and I'm a big fan of both, especially Volume 1. I remember back in college literally sitting on coolers in this rundown house in Tallahassee that I rented back in August 2004 before my roommates were there, before any of the furniture had been moved in, watching Kill Bill 1 and 2 back to back when Volume 2 hit DVD. Needless to say, Tarantino's Cold Bloody Affair is a lot more polished than mine. Because the movies themselves haven't really changed that much, I doubt that this will either fix any pre-existing problems or ruin any of the things that you loved about these films, but it does change how the movie feels when you take Volume 1 and 2 and combine it into just Kill Bill. The most substantial change, in my opinion, is a small one, technically, and that's the omission of the spoiler at the end of Part 1. I'm going to bleep it here, Kill Bill style, in case you don't know what it is. Not having Bill say, "Does she know?" changes the context of the entire movie. If you haven't seen it before, it is now a complete shock once we get to the end of what's now Act 2. And I would love to go back and be able to re-experience Kill Bill without knowing that twist beforehand. Because now as an audience, we're no longer ahead of the bride narratively, and it shocks both us and her. I think it's the superior decision when it comes to the storytelling of the film, and I'm sure that it was also one of the concessions that Tarantino made when the movie was split into two 20 years ago. One thing I was curious about was how the movie would feel combined into one film, because Volume 1 and Volume 2 have very different tones. Volume 1 is a bullet train of action and blood, while Volume 2 is a lot slower, a lot more contemplative, not boring, but slower. But with the intermission added, I actually think it works. Two totally different acts aren't uncommon in works of drama, and the second half of Kill Bill does not actually feel out of place, largely because you've had a chance to stretch your legs and maybe grab a soda, go to the bathroom, or just decompress after the Blue Leaves fight and the bride showdown with O-Ren. I'd also just like to say, can we normalize planned intermissions in 3+ hour movies? I know some countries already do them. I sat through Kill Bill and Avatar Fire and Ash on consecutive nights, and I really would have appreciated a chance to give my eyes and my bladder a rest during Avatar, which is about 3 hours and 15 minutes. And it was also great to just chat with my fellow audience members about what we liked about the movie so far. Now, I've always liked Volume 1 more than Volume 2, which means that I enjoyed Act 1 of The Whole Bloody Affair more than I enjoyed Act 2. I don't think that the second half of the film is bad, I just don't think it's as tight narratively or editorially as the first half. And Kill Bill Act 1 / Volume 1 is one of the best, most successfully stylized pieces of filmmaking of the 21st century. I mean, it just rocks. I can't really think of a more technical term to put it in. It was a delight to see it again on the big screen. I do think that the Blue Leaves fight is more impactful when it's in color and not black and white. It feels like more a part of the narrative and less like a standalone sequence when you don't have that color change. There is a bit of extra blood and gore added as well, since this version of Kill Bill doesn't have to concern itself with passing an MPAA ratings panel. It's unrated. The most substantial change to Act 1 as far as content material is a 7+ minute addition to the animated backstory of O-Ren, where she hunts down the Yakuza boss's main lieutenant. It's an exciting piece of animation. I don't really think it adds anything critical, but it also doesn't take away from the narrative. So if Tarantino always wanted to have it included, I don't really see a problem with that. And given that the animation, I assume, was done years after the original Kill Bill was released, it also fits in seamlessly, stylistically, with the rest. Volume 2 / Act 2 is basically untouched, apart from the omission of the prologue. While not including that prologue was the right choice, it also gets rid of one of Uma Thurman's most iconic moments, when she says, "I am gonna kill Bill." I'm gonna be honest, I was always kind of a doubter when it came to whether Kill Bill would work as one movie. I just thought the parts were too different. And I don't want to say that I didn't believe Tarantino when he said that he always intended Kill Bill to be one movie, but I just didn't see how it could be effective. However,
like you. I don't like anybody that's smart. All right, shut up. Shut up. Hey! It turns out Ringo is not the investor. But the real investors will be here at some point tonight. All do their best to impress. How good your best physical matches and tonight, the show is proved as a company. The investor will be here tonight. All has bigger powers now. Yeah, wait a second. Where the hell is that crackhead, huh? Maybe steals your friend's cocaine. You got to eliminate him. You understand? Gotta use that patch for good. Oh, no! Here you idiot! You can't start like this! I told you. Do what I asked. And you are a fucking moron. Just like that fucking asshole cocaine. Shout. I'll Steven Flow! Steven Flow signed a death warrant. I'll veto! The man's hurt! He's not cleared for pick up Pete! Veto! What the? Get off! No! It's Russo! It's JCW Mercy! Okay. Those of you who don't know me, my name is Russo. I'm the one who put the attitude in the attitude jar. And I am the new investor of JCW. My God. Please welcome the new investor of JCW Lunacy, Vince Russo. Kicking off Lunacy this week, out of the heels of one of the most shocking announcements in the history of JCW, our brand new investor, it's Vince Russo.
This is unprecedented. It is already all over the place. The hottest news in the world of pro wrestling. Vince Russo, the investor of JCW. This is insane.
One of the most polarizing individuals in wrestling history. He has cult followers. He has people that loathe him and want to see him in the ground. Vince Russo is a lightning rod of controversy. All right, we're going to show some respect here. And that goes to the people on top, too. Now, first off, I want all you people to wipe that stupid clown makeup off all your ugly faces. Of course, the heavy big Vito who watches over the investor. You guys are just sugar jerks. Well, how about this? Sugarloo! Sugarloo! No, lady, I'll take a rate check on that. Thank you. No, listen. Fuck you. You know why? Because your mom's coming around. What is it? You know, that's where it comes out. You know, I gotta tell you something. This I want to hear. This will affect all of us. I gotta tell you, when I came out here last week, kind of disappointed in the food. You know what I'm saying? A little disappointed. I haven't been in a wrestling ring in like 20 years, and you really? You know, let me tell you a little story. A couple of months ago, I got a call from my old friend Joe. And Joe asked me if I was interested in investing in his company because he wanted to bring it to the next level.
but I heard back from Joe's lawyers. And I said, why ain't I hearing